this week, hey, we have a special guest all the way from Canada. I think this is going to be Oz's new best friend. I feel it. I feel it in my heart. We have Kevin Lehrbass all the way from Canada, and Kevin is a guy who is a team leader for the Excel and Access Helpline. Hey, Kevin, would you mind saying hello and telling us a little bit about that role?
Hi, everyone. So basically what we do, work for a large management consulting firm, and people get stuck when they're working in Excel. I mean, in the whole world, there's probably about 400 million people that use Excel every day, at least 15 minutes, some of them half their day or most of their day. And it's not very efficient when people get stuck. So, at work, we've got a sort of like a live support hotline. People can call in, explain what they're trying to do, and we help them out live. So really exciting because the necessity of needing to know, anything they might ask, it sort of leads to becoming an expert. So
Yes.
the pressure is actually fun, never a dull moment.
Oh man, you up on that bull every day. Yeah. So,
Uh,
so I'm curious. Do you have a question,
no,
Rick?
go ahead, Oz. Go ahead.
Curious about what is something that might have given you pause and you had to think a second.
Well, yeah, sometimes you have to really clarify the requirements, but sometimes it's crystal clear what they want to do. It's just a tough one. And you sort of have to walk through it, talk to them, see what's going on, and then put the pieces together. And that's the fun part. We're building the solution and also teaching it to them live at the same time.
Yeah,
So it actually is a lot of fun. Solving puzzles all day long.
man.
So
I,
typically, someone calls in. How much time do you have to solve their problem? I mean, is this something you can say, "Oh yeah, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks," or is it like,
No,
Ding.
"We need an answer now"?
it's right away. Now, all these huge companies, there's different teams. When you say analytics these days, it's not just one team with two guys that are in a little closet area. It's many different teams, but we're live support, so we handle most of the stuff that's in Excel and Access. And there's always experts that are like into stats or programming or other softwares. There's just tons of them out there these days. The bigger databases, but if it's Excel or Access, you just got a bunch of data. You're trying to move it around. You're trying to pivot, calculate, all sorts of different things. Something's broken. You got to get rid of the links that you can't get out of there. Uh, you want to try to do some fancy functionality really fast. We jump in, and most of the stuff that we can solve.
wow. Um, what are some common themes that show up?
Well, I would say anyone that's working with data, it gets dumped out of some big database from somewhere in the world. Then it's just dropped into Access or Excel, and sometimes you got to do a lot of cleanup. You got to normalize the data. You got to get it all in columns, so then you can do a pivot. But then sometimes you have to decide, wait a minute, this is even too much for a pivot. Like, what if you've got, I mean, one sheet in Excel has 17 billion cells, and if you use a fraction of that, it's too much. If let's say you got 100 columns and you've got 800,000 rows, well, you need a bigger tool, right? You need to do something else. But so it's sort of assessing it as well. Is this going to be possible? And then if
Mhm.
not, just guide them to the right team, the right process.
And where do you go when it's that large? Because I hear that I haven't had use for Power Pivot myself, but when do you transition from, say, native Excel to Power Pivot to something else?
Yeah, Power Pivot is great, but the issue with it is that you pretty much have to be a data analyst because it gets into the joins, it gets into, you know, powerful tool, you can handle millions of rows, but then, you know, it's not, you have to learn join types, you have to know how to handle errors, nulls. That's, so
Uh,
sometimes you have to hand it off. Like, it gets down to if someone calls in and they just need some help, we're guiding them, we're creating it, we're teaching it to them, and they're sort of the architect. But of course, big data, that has to go elsewhere.
okay. And yes, you're saying something really interesting because Power Pivot is described as, yeah, it can handle all of this data, but then you have to deal with it in there as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of the native Excel functions don't go over there.
Yeah, see, a lot of people can jump into Excel, put a little data in, do some lookups, maybe do a pivot. But if you're dropping, let's say, 3-4 million rows into Power Pivot, you have to be pretty confident of what you're doing. I mean, the great part is that it's still in Excel. It's a
Yes.
free add-in, and it's all right there. You don't have to then sort of merge Oracle or SQL Server, and then do your analysis, drop it back into Excel. So there could be any number of combinations of where to put the data, how to work with it.
And where is there a cutoff where you've decided, okay, we got to start thinking about something other than Excel?
Oh, for sure. Like you look at, well, there's different factors. Is it a 32-bit machine? Is it a 64-bit? You can do a bit more. Is it already 100 megabytes and you're just starting, and that's only 1/10 of the data? Well, then you have to go to a bigger tool. What if so you sort of have to, I guess it's just working with the data for so long, knowing the limitations, when it's going to slow down more and more and more, when you might get lucky and do a bit more, or when you just have to say, look, we're not even going to spend 2 hours. You really need a stronger tool.
Okay. So it's more than just counting cells or counting rows and columns. You're looking at a lot of other things.
The amount of data and the amount of formulas, calculation time as well.
Right.
Those two things go together.
So when you're helping people solve their problems, are you taking the approach of, hey, let me just get you from A to B, let me do the work for you, or is it more kind of teaching them to fish? So are you fishing for them, or is it both, depending on what they want?
You want to make people comfortable with the model that they own, right? If it's their model, you really want them to, you walk through the whole thing, you build it, you teach it, and then at the end of the call, you want someone to be confident and to know, hey, I know all the moving parts in this thing. Maybe some of the array formulas or, get pivot data or whatever, the syntax is a bit challenging, but they understand every single part, they've got it all written down, then they need to modify it, extend it, explain to someone else, they're in good shape.
Beautiful. So what I'm hearing is they might not be able to recreate the array. They might not be able to do, because it takes experience and it takes seeing things over and over again. But as long as they understand how it all hangs together, then there's the empowerment.
Sure, yes. And some people, it depends on how much of a rush it is. Sometimes we can teach all advanced arrays in 20 minutes. And people get really excited because they understand all the conditions and all the transposing, all the dynamic stuff, and they've got it. They know Control Shift Enter. They know all the different parts, and they're very happy. So it's very rewarding, I would say.
Like a new world opens up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Kevin, which came first? This role, this job that you have, or the website?
Oh well, I started working with data about 15 years ago. And sort of my lucky break, like, believe it or not, the first time I remember seeing Excel, I was in Mexico teaching English as a second language around 1996, and I just saw in an office, I think I was going to teach a class, and I saw Excel, and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And it took me about 4 or 5 years to actually get my starting job, and then I'm a technical administrator of a database, and to teaching myself SQL, and getting into the pivots, the formulas. Then I remember the day I found where you put the VBA code. You do the Alt, I think it's Alt F11 Visual Basic Editor, and that was like, whoa, another world just opens right up.
It's like I think Oz says it's like what do you call it, Oz? It's like just things just keep. It's like the clown pulling the stuff out of his mouth, the handkerchief.
Oh yeah.
The magician pulling the handkerchiefs out of his sleeve.
And then getting in a little bit of program with T-SQL, it's just, you ever see those computer programmers that are really excited, talking really loud, and you sort of look over at them? Well, there is a certain excitement to it, ideally you want to have a job that you want to, every day you wake up and you're still thinking about stuff and you're kind of racing to get there, and that's how exciting it is.
Wow.
There's an NFL coach, or he doesn't coach anymore, Jay Gruden. You know, he used to coach for I think Oakland Raiders and Tampa Bay, and he was known as a workaholic. You know, he was always in the office until 2 in the morning, and he was always back at 5 a.m. It was just crazy hours. And they asked him, you know, why do you do that? And he says something to the effect of, you ever have that situation where you have a problem, but it's not a problem because you want to solve it, and all you're doing is just thinking all the time about solving it? Said, I got that job. That's the reason I need to get into the office. I can't wait to leave. And
It's so much fun.
And whenever people's face lights up, whenever they're talking about analysis or something like that, to me it's just the same kind of just passion and drive.
Right. You getting on a brand new bull. You see your name come up, and then you are riding both Cephas today. Okay.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Like I'm the team leader as well, so sometimes I'm in meetings or whatever. But when I get back in the queue to help out, I'm just like, come on, give me something good today, something fun, you know. And
okay.
Yeah.
So with a job like that, it could easily turn into, oh, not that again. Like the tattoo guys that complain, I don't want to tattoo another praying hands ever again. And then here comes
exactly.
another.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's when you have to turn it around and go from the technical part to really caring about this person that's stuck and is very frustrated. Let's say it's just a VLOOKUP. So you want to give it your best and explain it so well that after 5 minutes they know VLOOKUP left and right, you know. And well, I guess I can only go right, but you know, index match,
good one,
offsets. You want them to feel so good about it that they're comfortable and they've got like that skill and they can run with it.
I've got one more question for you, then we're going to move on to the next topic. Could you talk a little bit about your website and your YouTube channel and how that all came about? How did you come up with the name? And you know, there's a next level type of thing that some people do, which is there's one thing to kind of geek out in your corner and just got to be happy about something, but there's also kind of a next level when you say, you know what, I got more to share. How did that come about for you?
I would say it went back to when I was doing more on the programming side, like my last job, or maybe, no, 2 jobs ago. And I wasn't doing as much Excel, and I was sort of missing it. So I had a different site back then, and I was sort of before blogs were popular, just sharing ideas, and then people from around the world would share their ideas, and it would sort of grow. I mean, you get in the Excel community, and you just learn from each other. And then I heard about YouTube, and at first I couldn't believe, like, wait a minute, people put their, cat videos on YouTube? Why? But then eventually, you create a channel, and you sort of look at the social media, and it's fun to learn as well. How do you learn it? Well, once again, by necessity and passion. So you make a website, and at first, no one shows up. You make a YouTube channel, and then you just keep building on it, and it's just kind of fun. It's like a hobby, I would say. I don't sell anything. Just because I don't have the time to support it, right? Actually, I did sell a wedding planner maybe 4 or 5 years ago on Chandu's site, but to support something, that's a whole different thing, right? You got to have staff, and I'm not at that point, not really interested, but it is fun just to share ideas. We learn from each other.
Well, I got a question before we move on. Is when you mentioned T-SQL and all, how do you see Excel's role as a tool in the world when there is access and SQL and all these other things, and you have people who say you need to get rid of Excel, or my job is to get people off of Excel. How do you see all this stuff hanging together?
Well, I've heard that since about 2002, 2003, and one thing is that Microsoft just keeps improving the product, and then another thing is that you're not going to get, in a perfect world, only a data analyst or a programmer would touch the data, and that's just not the way it is. People all over the world are putting things into Excel. They all can't pay thousands of dollars to experts, so they're going to try it out. They're going to go online. They're going to create pivots, kind of try to figure it out. So spreadsheets, I don't think, are ever going to go away, and there are millions upon millions of them all around the world. They're on servers. They automate processes. People do in-house, things for their mini processes. So I don't think it'll really ever go away, but some people think they will.